I'm Dr. Uche, a practicing physician who's been coaching others to write and publish their biographies since 2013. The first autobiographies I brought to publication were for my dad and granddad, and those took more than 5 years and lots of mistakes. On this channel, I will show you the tools I use to perfect the process so that you can have your biography done in 6 months or less without the delays and mistakes. Remember to subscribe and share with your friends. Let's dig in. Gosh, this is so important. Knowing what I know now, this is highly recommended. If you are so fortunate as to be interviewing an older relative to write their story, or if you're writing for yourself and you have children, I would really recommend to make sure you draw this out. This is something you can do decade by decade of your life so far. What am I talking about? This is going to be good. I am talking about wisdom and pearls of knowledge for every decade. Okay, I'm in my 40s, which means I'm in my fifth decade of life. And if I had to write my story, which I'm working on, by the way, and I want to pull out wisdom for every decade for my child to read someday, I would say it starts mostly in the second decade. You know, in the first decade, most of us are really too young to say too much. But let's say in the second decade, that's when we're teenagers, right? Early to mid to late teens is in the second decade. I would say definitely work really hard, right? You have the opportunity to put yourself in good stead for a good career, college training degree in your second decade. That's when you're working towards getting to university to study a course, right? So you really want to work hard in that decade. I would also say to diversify interests. Study hard, but find a sport, right? Maybe an instrument if you're so fortunate as to have that opportunity, because moving on, life gets more hectic and it's harder to dabble in different things once you get into the third decade of life. Okay, so that would be my piece of advice for the second decade. I'd probably also say to not miss out on opportunities to have fun, have lots of fun, make loads of memories. Okay, in the third decade, in your 20s, most of us are in university or studying towards some course or studying towards some career or job. And I would say network a lot, like work hard on your studies, but meet people. People can come in handy. You never know who's going to write you that letter of recommendation. I would say every single person you meet, think of them as a potential referee, somebody who can write a reference for you. So try to impress, okay? I obviously have to be yourself, but put your best foot forward. Let me put it that way. You never know who you're going to come back to and ask for a reference. I would say that if you're in training, if you're in a residency or fellowship, see yourself as a junior colleague. See yourself as somebody who's training in that program, but you're a potential new recruit for that program. So look around at the folks training you. Think of them as people who may have to be called to vote on whether you join the program or not. So if you keep that in mind, that's yet another reason why you know you have to put your best foot forward in everything you do. You have to network and make sure you're collegial towards everybody. That's in your second decade. I would also say to really take your time, meet and make lots of friends, because after that, life does get busier for most people and responsibilities start catching up with a lot of us. Even if we're not starting to maybe have kids, have our own families, our parents start aging. And so you start getting towards that sandwich generation with raising kids and aging parents soon after your third decade. Okay, so it's really Possibly for a lot of us, it's the decade in which you have the fewest responsibilities. So I'd say make the best of that third decade, travel, go see different things, make lots of friends, have lots of exposures, but also set up a solid foundation for your career and your future job. And then if I had to move into the fourth decade, that's in your 30s, I would perhaps say that finding a life partner becomes maybe a little more important for most people. Yes, a lot of people are working on it up to that point, even in the third decade, but I'd say perhaps a significant fraction of people may get married in the fourth decade, in their 30s, especially for people who have a career. So I'd say to choose wisely, because who you marry can make or break your future life. Make sure you have goals aligned. Make sure you believe in the same principles as far as the most important things, obviously, are concerned. A lot of people don't really know how to choose, but get like counseling or input. A lot of churches have premarital counseling. I'd say those things are actually really important. Where you live is important because where you set up shop and work and raise kids is important. So even though you may be a young, maybe single, but you have a plan or hope to marry someday, consider the schools in the area, right? So for example, if you want to have children, what about the schools around you? So in choosing a job, think about those things in choosing of where to live. And then in the fourth decade, well, that's where I am. So I'm learning as I go. I happen to think the fourth decade for me so far has been a decade of clarity. I feel like I know myself so much better. I feel like I don't bother anymore what anybody thinks. I go on living my life to the best of my ability. If anything does not gel with me, I cut it out. People, things, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's not feeding or nurturing my spirit, I unapologetically cut it out, okay? And I don't apologize for that. I do it without even mincing words. So bring out wisdom for every decade. In writing your story, in interviewing an older relative who maybe they have 6, 7, 8 decades, ask them, what is the wisdom for every decade? What are the pearls of knowledge you think I should know? If you had to go back and advise yourself, what would you tell them at 25, at 37, and so on and so forth? So this is really important to put out in your biography, autobiography, or memoir. I'll see you in my next video.